Hi everybody, my name is Kate and today I'm going to talk to you about my path to passing SATs, scoring 1510 as an international student. So generally for international students, passing SATs is much more difficult because we don't have this stuff at school. Like we have basic English, but nobody will prepare us for the SAT. Preparation for SAT is extremely important because although in California they are talking about maybe creating another exam, canceling the SATs, even with all this stuff going on, SAT scores are still extremely important in all the states. And for me, as for an international student, I'm from Moscow, Russia, it really was an issue, how to have this good score on SAT, although I'm not a native speaker. How can I read these texts that quickly and answer these questions, which are sometimes really tricky. So basically, when I started taking my SAT, the first one, I was taking it without any preparation. An evening before the test, what I did, I took the variant, I just looked through that variant, and I was like, so okay, I think it is nothing really difficult here, and I've ended up scoring 1350. So this was my starting score. Afterwards, I realized that yes, I do need to prepare to this test. So I took a couple of months of preparation. So what I did, I just ordered some books and looked through other tests, tried to I think I did about 10 practice tests, and I tried to learn some words, to do some another maths problems. So generally it is nothing that difficult there, because mathematics on SAT General is really basic, especially if you're good at it.
Math.
So my first advice to international students, if you really want to score 50 points above your current score, try improving your maths because it is generally easier. It is also important to consider that universities do take into account this reading and writing score and math score. So if you have 800s on maths and 600s on reading, it is not that great, especially if you're not applying to 100% maths major. So what you do need to understand that American students, they are preparing to an extent for this test at school, and for example in my Russian school there was nothing similar to these tests. So basically in my 10th and 11th grade I went to DP, IB diploma program, and there were some tests, but they were generally different from these ones on SAT in some cases, because firstly in IB it was much easier in case of timing, because timing on SAT reading is just crazy, and the questions were composed in a little bit different way, so we didn't have tests all the time in IB diploma program, but generally some of the questions were much easier than SATs and some of them were more difficult. So what I really want to say, if you're an international student, you should really take time to prepare for the SATs, even if you have a good English base at school. Generally, I do think that I've already told that maths section is much easier because you don't really need to have an extremely good language to understand what these maths questions ask you. So basically, I've went through many variants, and what I've understood that on math section I don't really need to look through the whole text in that maths problem, because I already know what they are going to ask, depending on how this math question looks, which formulas are there.
You already know the truth.
In case of reading and writing, it is like different. So firstly, I would really say that writing is much easier because there aren't any complicated grammar rules. Like, I do think that writing questions are all kind of basic. So what you really need to do for writing is to get an idea about how sentences in English are composed. So I would really advise to starting read in original as early as possible. I think I've started it in my 8th or 9th grade. I tried to read the whole Game of Thrones series in original and I really liked it. And I think it was the stage where my English has improved the most.
Is it possible to improve on perfection?
And yes, like, you also can download some, for example, Barron's books from the internet in order to like look through these like rules for punctuation and some other stuff in American English. In case of reading, I would really like to repeat that timing is crazy, and what you do need to do is to always train with timer. If you're training without timer, it is extremely bad for your scores, just believe me, because I went through the same stuff. I think I'm going to talk about timing in another video, so how I've made myself to cope with this stuff. Well, I wasn't really fond of reading these texts on time. I know that many like books, guides, websites say that in order to be successful in reading on SAT, you do need to look through many articles on New York Times, for example, but I don't really think that it is the case. It is a good idea if you have like a half of the year to your SATs, but if it is in a month, you do need to try to solve as many practice tests as possible. If you have some like problems with your vocabulary, you should really look through these lists of SAT words. So what I personally did, I'm not really fond of trying to remember the words without any context. So there are many websites in the internet where you can look for a word and the meaning of this word in the context. And what I've liked the most, I found this book. I'm going to include a link in the description. So basically you have like a word list and this book helps you to memorize this word list. I think there are about 300 words at least, especially like for the SAT, and it helps you to memorize them in the context and using some concepts. Like, for example, I think I'm going to include some pictures here. So basically you have the word which you need to learn, you have the explanation, and you have some funny picture explaining this word in a little bit weird way, but I found that it is really easy for me to remember the word after like this example. And like beneath the picture you have these descriptions using this word in like context. And like after each lesson, which contains I think about 20 new words, you have some tests on them. So I would really advise you to use like this kind of stuff in order to memorize words. And like the final thing which I would really like to tell you is that in order to aim for the SAT score, you should really look on your universities, especially on your like first choice. So some universities, they generally ask for higher math, and some universities do prefer like higher reading. Don't misunderstand me, like generally in all the requirements math is higher. Math is always higher because it is easier to improve, but you should just look to the university stats and just to make this conclusion whether my math score is enough to get into these universities, and the same stuff about your reading score. Thank you for your attention. I do hope that this video was useful to you, and see you in the next one.